No, Tim, if you learn the alphabet, you can read books. And I was like, why the hell doesn't anybody tell me this? And she was fantastic. Didn't take any first full-time job.
Yeah, I mean, did you have any jobs at this point? Had you done little side things?
Well, I mean, my parents never made all too much money, so I did work during school to cover some of my expenses. So I tried a number of things. I mean, I worked as a librarian in, I guess it was Guest Library, the East Asian Studies Library. That didn't pay very well, so then I started to safeguard, which is a fancy word for bouncing. So I was a bouncer.
At where?
At the eating clubs at Princeton, which were like co-ed fraternities.
Did you study any martial arts at this point? Or?
Oh yeah.
Okay,
no, I mean,
so
that was after I came back from Japan. So I'd competed in judo for a year and got a first degree black belt, which is not a big deal. But at the Kodokan in Japan, and had done some kickboxing and had wrestled forever. So it was enough. It was certainly more than most bouncers. And there were actually two bouncing groups, safeguard groups. The first was the safeguard agency, which was almost all football players, and they didn't know how to subdue people without hurting them. So the likelihood of getting sued as a club owner was really high, because they'd just be like, "Stop causing trouble," and then it would be like the son of a Rockefeller, and then you're screwed.
Right.
Whereas there was another group, a smaller group of people like me. There were only 4 or 5 of us, and we got paid twice as much because we could actually get rid of people, get them out of the clubs without causing bodily harm, which was a huge plus. And then I also had experimented with entrepreneurship, so I taught an accelerated learning seminar while at Princeton. And I remember, you've probably had an experience like this. I mean, the last few years have been great, but the one moment where I felt richest in my entire life was after my first seminar, which I did in the daycare center of a church on Nassau Street at Princeton, because I didn't have the cash to rent a space. So I negotiated to try to use this for teaching accelerated learning. And it was $50 a person, which I thought was outrageous, but I was like, I'll try it. $50 for a 3-hour seminar, outrageous. And had, I think it was 32 people.
Wow.
And so I just remember having all of these crumpled $20 bills and checks falling out of my pockets, riding back to my dorm with my bike. Just being like, I'm rich, this is amazing. And whatever it was, $1,500 or $1,200, I don't recall. I just remember that was when I really got bit by the bug, sort of the entrepreneurship bug.
And so after you graduated, what did you move on to?
I ended up going to San Jose. So I was working in San Jose for TrueSand Networks. And TrueSand Networks, storage area networks, a little redundant, was a mass data storage company. So we would architect and sell data storage systems to places like DreamWorks or United States Geological Survey.
What were you doing there? Because you graduated with a degree in what then?
East Asian Studies.
East Asian Studies, okay.
Yeah,
So that doesn't naturally translate to SAM.
No, it doesn't. And I was in sales because I had sent the CEO 30 some odd email and pitched him and done a paper on his company and so forth, and he'd just been like, no, we're fine, no. And I was like, hey, I'm flying to San Jose anyway, why don't I meet you for 20 minutes to share some of the competitive research I did that didn't make it into my final paper, which was about the company. And he was like,
Flea Dog, sorry, Flea Dog has to go down.
And he said, you're not going to stop harassing me until I give you a job. Is that roughly it?
I'm either going to give you a job or a restraining order.
Exactly. And so he hired me for sales, and I ended up being a sales guy, but I was more of a technical sales. I mean, the guys that I talked to who ended up buying from me thought I was an engineer, because I spent so much time learning about SAN and RAID and all of that stuff, parity, etc. I mean, I went so deep on it.
And that helps in sales.
It does.
I actually did computer sales for a while at Computer City, this place called Computer City.
Nice.
And I just knew so much about computers, the ins and outs and everything that was going on. I wasn't just reading off the specs,
Yeah, you have to have something in common with the people you're selling to sell effectively. And a lot of the other sales guys were sort of BSDs from EMC or whatever, and they'd be like, you don't need to know that stuff, just sell, learn how to sell. And I was like, not sure that's the best approach, if you're selling to CTOs. And ultimately, I outsold all those guys, because I think in large part because I knew the technology. I could sit down and I'd be like, all right, you're using this program. Let me guess, you have this many Solaris boxes, blah, blah, blah. You're probably doing this. You have this problem. And they're like, holy shit, you know my environment. Like if you talk to someone here and I'm like, no, I just read about what the kind of stuff you're making.
So at this point in your life, you're still doing, you know, probably longer than 40 hours a week in work,
horrible.
Busting your ass.
Oh, horrible. Yeah, I was going into like on Thanksgiving. So this is around Thanksgiving. I went in on Thanksgiving. Only person in the office to send like happy Thanksgiving emails to prospects. I mean, it was a depressing scene. I was really a horrible workaholic.
At what point